Meet Rodney. Rodney had a business teaching accordion lessons to Stanley. However, Stanley was his only student. But when Rodney got QuickBooks, he could organize his accounts and instantly see how much profit he was making. And so Rodney discovered he had a little extra cash to spend on marketing, which grew his business from this to this. Way to grow, Rodney. Know where you stand instantly. Visit QuickBooks.ca.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It is 7 o'clock in the morning, Friday morning, April the 14th, Good Friday. I'm glad to be here. This is one child abuse survivor to another restoration. Just started broadcasting these shows again just this week, actually, and after taking about 8-month break. So I'm glad to be back. These shows are very helpful for me. I hope they're helping other people, other survivors of abuse, to realize that, we certainly didn't deserve to be abused, and we can help ourselves. We can, first of all, reach out to people around us, reach out and get help, and also, remember to do these things to try to help ourselves to get through the day, to get through whatever we need to get through, learn how to cope, and that's kind of why I'm doing this show. It sort of keeps me on track for my own healing journey, and so I'm glad to be here. This morning we're going to look at morning reflection, positive reinforcement, self-care, coping mechanisms. If we have time, we'll look at a meditation for the day, like just briefly. It's a half-hour show, so it's not very long, and we'll get right into it. And I'm looking at some information really from Havoca, HAVOCA, that's Help for Adult Victims of Child Abuse .org, and you can. I did put the chat room open up today. I actually remembered to do that, and I put the link in there. I used to always have the chat room open, and so I did that this morning. If you'd like to sit in there, and the link is there to the Havoca, and under the Survivor tab, there's all kinds of information there that's very, very helpful for people. I'm looking at it's an acronym that they wrote up. It's I believe the lady's name was Cheryl, and so this morning that's what we're going to take a look at first. But this morning reflection. How are we doing? We can ask ourselves. I can ask myself, how am I doing on my healing journey? Is there any particular things that I personally need to work on? How am I feeling? This sort of thing. Get in touch with what's happening. Or in my life now at the moment because of the abuse that I suffered. I know this morning, just thinking about looking back at this month is very triggering for me. It's a triggering month on the calendar. Lots of anniversary dates roll around in April for me. And also, it's the National Child Abuse Awareness Prevention Month in the United States, which then triggers me as well because I do a lot of work just sharing information as well as broadcasting to promote that. So it's a very triggering month for me. I've had a lot of flashbacks yesterday, and actually this whole week, lots of flashbacks and lots of really uncomfortable, horrific memories coming to surface, and sort of the same old things that I used to go through where I didn't know how to cope, and now because I have these coping mechanisms in place, and I've been on my healing journey for quite a while, they don't affect me like they used to, which is really good, but I still recognize them. So how am I doing on my healing journey? I think I'm doing good. I'm definitely moving in a positive direction, not going backward in my healing journey, which is nice. I know I need to work on some things. I need to do some inner child healing work, and that's always something I keep putting off, and it takes time to do that. We'll look at some of that stuff this morning. We need to do a safety checklist as well. If you're a survivor of abuse, or if anybody else, really, if you're listening to this, you may want to make sure you're safe enough to listen to this stuff. If you're a survivor of abuse, get the information on how to keep yourself safe and to know whether or not you should be listening to something like this. Especially if you're just starting your healing journey, it's really important. You don't want to, listen to another person's information or story and then have that trigger you and send you backward in your healing journey. Backward. You don't want to go backward in your healing journey. You want to go forward at a steady rate, and make progress, not go backward, right? So the ASCA Survivor to Thriver manual, I would suggest that that's a really good manual. I've actually read the whole entire thing. The safety checklist in that ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse Survivor to Thriver manual, is 60-something pages long, just for the safety checklist. It's really worth reading. I read the whole entire thing. And that will definitely show you what to look for, to whether or not you think you'd be safe enough to listen to something like this. If you're not safe enough or you're not sure, it's probably better that you turn it off and just don't listen, and then go get that information. And or if you have a therapist or a counselor, or someone in your life who's working with you to help you through your, to support you, that person, you could have them read that with you. And then if you didn't understand certain things about it, and then they can help you, to get that information and to know how to know whether or not you're safe enough to listen or not, right? So be sure and do that, because if you're not sure, then, you would not be hurting my feelings by turning the show off at all. Just, that would be the right thing to do, right? So we'll get right into this. This is from Hovoka. It's an acronym that Cheryl, like the lady named Cheryl, wrote. She wrote it for, it actually spells out little blurbs that she's written up for adult survivors of sexual abuse. Each letter, she's written a little blurb for it. So she says it's not just helpful for survivors of sexual abuse. This would be helpful for anybody who suffered any type of abuse. So we're looking at it. We're on the letter. I'm going to go back to listen to the last show. We were on S for in the letter sex, sexual. Now we're on E for in the same word. Educate others about sexual abuse. She says, speak from your heart and share through your experience. In doing this, your abuse will not be in vain. By educating children, they become stronger. They can protect themselves and survive the unspeakable if it happens. If they have knowledge, they use it and seek help from those they love. So E is for educate others about sexual abuse. I would say educate others about any type of abuse, all abuse. That's what I've been working on, is really sharing my information, is mainly for public information. It also helps me to, because I'll never get justice. There's never going to be any justice for me here on the earth. And so this is my justice. It's coming forward with my information because my voice could not be silenced. And the same with my siblings, all of my 6 siblings whose voices, they were silenced. And they never spoke out, and they never got any help. And many of them are gone now, 2 from suicide, 1 from murder, and 1 from cancer. And the other 2 are they're not in denial, but they're very quiet. They don't, they haven't sought any help. They haven't been working on their healing journey or anything like that. So, my parents got away with what they did, and then my brother with me. My brother was 21-year-old brother. I was 8 years old, and I was he sexually abused me. He got away with it. He killed himself at the age of 33. So when I was 20, he killed himself, committed suicide. So I never, even if I wanted to prosecute, press charges or whatever, even if I could have, it was too late. So, I'll never get justice. So that's why I'm speaking out about this stuff. So I think what she's saying is very important. The abuse will not be in vain then, Many people can't speak out. So there's a lot of people, a lot of survivors of abuse who are not able to speak out for many, many reasons. And it could be that their abusers are still alive and they're threatening their lives, or they would kill them or threaten their lives if they did speak out, or cause them harm or harm the family or whatever. There's also the issue of statute of limitations. Sometimes people speak out later in life because they remember the abuse later in life, which happens to many survivors, and then it's too late because their abusers are already passed on or whatever. So many times people they just can't speak out, or they don't. And so this would be for people who are willing to do this. Not everybody would want to speak out about their experience. I would say the best thing to do is just get help and not be alone and suffer on your own. That's what I was doing. This was just suffering on my own until the age of 42, and I never reached out, to get help from anyone, from a counselor, therapist, from friends, from other survivors. I never reached out, and that's at the age of 42. I finally started reaching out, and that's where really my healing journey began. Right. So I would just say, just reach out, get some help. You don't have to educate others about sexual abuse. I don't, I like what she says here just because that's nice. It's part of her an acronym there, but I would say it's not that important. Most important thing is for you to get help, and you certainly deserve it. I know I did. And I do, right? So make sure you get help and don't suffer on your own, right? It's really important. Next, we're going to look at this. I actually found one more section of that inner child healing work. It's the last page of it. You can go to their website, hovoka.org, and it's under the inner child tab for survivors. It's called Making Peace with Your Inner Child, and it's the last section of that, and I think this is very interesting to read through. We'll check it out. I've done a lot of inner child healing work, and when I first started doing inner child healing work, I didn't even really know what inner child stuff was, and I almost didn't believe that that was possible, that I had all these inner children or an inner child or whatever. But today I recognize that, yeah, there are inner children within me that are wounded, but what I realize is that it's not separate entities. I don't have separate personalities. These are just wounded places where I was wounded in my lifetime at certain ages, that I'm stuck in that wounded. I'm stuck in that wounded position because of the woundedness and never receiving any help. That I needed to go back and do some rescuing of these parts of me that were so wounded. And so I did do all that, and it's been very, very helpful. I used a program actually called Your Envisioned Mind. It used to be called Forget Talking Therapy. It's out of Australia. Beverly Searle created that with she's basically the creator of that, along with Kate Mitchell, who actually was helping her with some ideas and stuff. But they both worked with me on that program, Your Envisioned Mind, and very, very helpful. That helped me get through the child sexual abuse, which I decided to take on at around 20 and deal with for the first time in my lifetime. I think it was 2011 when I started that, and it took me the better part of a year. But this inner child work has been very important for me to do, and I'm still working on it. It's a long process for me, maybe not for other people. For me, it's just taken me years and years and years because I don't have a lot of time to spend on it. So, but it's great, and I'm glad that I actually did the work in it, because it has made a lot of difference, if not most of the difference. So she says here, whoever wrote this article, each of us has a little child residing within ourselves. This little child has been with us all along, even through our adult lives. The quote-unquote little you has been another voice from within yourself that has guided and directed you in many areas of your life. So as a child, your parents, teachers, culture, society instilled belief systems that reside inside your inner being. Your beliefs and perceptions, which were those of this little child, have been responsible for many of your experiences throughout your life. The little child may even be responsible for many of the actions and reactions you have in the present moment. So as many of you, she says, have gotten in touch with this little child. In your relationships, you may have been able to overcome the patterns and beliefs of this little one. Many of you have chosen to ignore the attitudes that have bound you to a certain way of being. So they said here, it's important to get in touch with your inner child for many reasons. And you may be a parent having difficulty coping with your own children because your own needs may not be met. In terms of a spouse, we tend to attract those individuals who mirror where we are in our own lives. As caregivers to a parent, this little child may burst out from within at any given moment, and you may find yourself having to be a parent to your parent, while at the same time you have reverted back to your childhood patterns, beliefs, and roles in your communications with them. This can pose a great deal of confusion, pain, and hardship if you're trying to move into the role of parenting. One of the best ways, they said here, to make amends or peace with your little child within is to have frequent dialogues with them. So they said here, it's a great experience if you can have dialogues with another individual who is there to support you through the process. For the time being, may I suggest you get comfortable in your own energy in a safe place. Gently close your eyes and begin to take deep, slow breaths. This is kind of how you get into the inner child work. It's basically a quiet, you quiet yourself and quiet your, do some breathing work. It's kind of like a beginning of a meditation, really. So she's actually going through this, or whoever wrote this, and explaining it. Gently close your eyes and begin to take deep breaths and slow breaths. With each inhale, breathe in love and light, filling your whole being with both. On exhale, breathe out all your worries, fears, concerns, and doubts, knowing that they are not serving you in the present moment. She's actually taking people through this inner child work, and you can go ahead and read that if you want to. That's havoka.org. I'm not going to go through that part of it. So she's, but that's how when I do the inner child healing work, I can actually do that myself. I don't need somebody to guide me into that. But at first, it was very helpful to have the two ladies that helped me with Your Envisioned Mind do that for me. One lady, Kate Mitchell, stuck around and helped me through my healing journey, long distance from Australia. I live in Canada. She would call, I'd say, once or twice a week and do and help me to go in and actually work with my inner children. It was very, very helpful. And now I can do it on my own because I understand how it works. So it's interesting how it works. And I would say if you haven't done it before and you're just starting your healing journey, I wouldn't even suggest it. I was quite a few years into my healing journey and quite a long ways through it before I started doing anything like that. And I'm glad because at first I think that would have really bothered me because I got in touch with my wounded inner children who were still, this is graphic, still, abused. Like I was still, my inner children, these little children that I rescued were still bleeding. They were still on the floor in a pile of, in a heap. They were still bleeding. There was a lot of graphic, because of the beatings and the physical abuse and even the child sexual abuse. I won't go into too many details here. You can check out if you are interested in all what I have to say on my Born in Hell website. I am very graphic on that website, and that's my story. But I won't do that on the air here. But I had to go in and rescue myself. So I'm actually really glad that I didn't do that work when I first started. I don't think I could have handled it. I wouldn't have probably handled it all that well. And so I wouldn't suggest this for anybody who's just starting their healing journey. And if you're not sure, if you're, like I said, if you're safe enough to do the work, because it is hard work, it's very disturbing. It can be anyway, especially at first. I would have somebody who's really actually knows what they're doing, kind of someone who's trained in this sort of thing, to help you with this guided meditation stuff. Because it was disturbing, but I was far enough along in my healing journey that I could handle it, and I'm glad that I did it because I made a lot of peace, a lot of peace. But it's really, it's hard work. So I wouldn't suggest it for somebody who's just starting out, and also for anybody who hasn't done it on your own and you're not sure if you're going to be safe enough. Make sure that you get help with that, right? So from somebody. So we'll pick up the rest of that. You can go look at that article if you want to on Hovoka.org and finish reading that, and we will pick up the rest of this section for Monday, what she has to say about that, the rest of that inner child, making peace with your inner child. So that's quite interesting. And we'll move on. We've got positive reinforcement. What are we doing right, in our daily walk? Instead of just looking at the negatives, because it's real easy as a survivor of abuse, especially for me. I don't know about anybody else, but I know for myself, because I was abused so horrifically in every way, I have a lot of self-negativity, Oh, I hate myself. I have a lot of suicidal ideation. I'm not worth even, I'm not worthy to even be alive. I don't deserve to be alive. This runs through my mind quite often, actually, I would say daily, just because my mind is scarred from mainly my mother. Scarred my mind, my will, my emotions, my very being, including my body. But she, I would say that she's the biggest culprit, really, who put all of her children over the edge, not just me. So I have a lot of problems with negativity, looking at self very negatively. So instead of doing that, this morning I want to look at positive reinforcement. Positive. What are we doing right in our daily walk? Looking at the positives and progress instead of just negative thoughts, right? So what am I doing right in my daily walk? Well, I've been doing really well to get things done this last while. I've been working on getting organized, staying organized, which is hard for me to do. I've got a terminally ill husband, and he's terminally ill. He's very, very sick. He's in and out of the hospital quite a bit, especially this last year, which is kind of why I haven't been broadcasting. And I'm on my healing journey again, still working through slowly, step by step, which I think is a walk in the right direction. And also, I'm trying to look after my body a little bit better, which I never used to do, especially through my teens and 20s, with a lot of drug use and self-injury and just, really insane stuff, not looking after myself. And even the rest of my life, I really didn't do much to look after myself. So I'm kind of working at slowly making these changes, to try to be good to my body, to be good to myself, And so I think I'm going in the right direction there. So there's lots of things. So you could take a look at your own walk, your own daily walk here with healing work, and you could look at some things that you're doing right instead of just always what we're doing wrong. It's good to look at some of the things we're doing wrong so we can know what we need to work on. But it's not a good idea. It's not good for me to sit around and just bash myself all the time because I'm not getting certain things done, or I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing that, which is real easy to do. It's that inner critical parent voice, really, which is my abuser mother's voice mainly, which is constantly calling me names, running me down. I can still hear her voice, because I remember the things that she said to me, which really hurt me deeply, wounded. So that stuff comes back all the time, and it's just in my face. And so that's why I like to look at the positive side. What am I doing right? Because that reinforces the fact that, what, I am not those things that she said. I'm none of those things that my mother said. And I don't have to believe the lies, right? And I don't, I can choose to look at the truthfulness of the situation, which is I'm doing really well. And, sure, I have a hard days here and there, and everybody does. I have bad days here and there. But for the most part, I'm doing really well. And, if you can look back and say that, I mean, that's pretty good. So that's why I like to do that instead of just looking at the negative all the time. We have a positive affirmation from Havoka. It's on their affirmations page. And the next one that we were looking at says, I can make things happen. The last one we looked at was, I feel surrounded by love. And this one today is, I can make things happen. So I could say that all day if I wanted to. I can make things happen. But do I believe it? That's the thing. Sure, I can make things happen. I'm still alive. I'm a survivor of abuse. And, I mean, that's a big thing to be able to say that. It really, truly is. I'm still here. I'm still alive. After so much horror and so much destruction around me. And my life is abuse-free. And I can make things happen. And I'm thankful. I'm living in an abuse-free environment. I'm not being abused anymore. My husband treats me very well. He's like the best thing that ever happened to me in my entire lifetime. I love him dearly. He's my best friend. He's everything to me. And he loves me. He supports me. That's awesome. Yeah, I can get up in the morning and do the things I need to do. I can make things happen. I'm not perfect, and neither is anybody else. So when somebody tries to tell me that they're perfect, I don't have to pay any attention to that because I know that they're not. I just laugh at them. I'm just kind of like, whatever. Get off your little lie there, because no one's perfect. And but we can make things happen. I can make things happen. So I like that. I like what they had to say there. Next, we're going to look at this first step. This is important for people. This is what I was talking about, this safety information. Instead of doing the ASCA Survivor to Thriver workbook, which I did on Blog Talk Radio years ago, I went through that information, probably 2010, 2009, 2010, 2011, right in there somewhere. I went through that whole entire manual, and it was helpful for me, absolutely. I was hoping it was helping other people out as well. And they have a safety first section, really first step. So help for adult victims of child abuse. That's Havoka. If you go to their website there, you'll see under survivors information, there's a tab and it's called First Step. And I'm just going to read the first part of it. They said, you may be feeling lost. You may be wondering how to start. I said, don't worry. You've already taken the first step. As survivors, we know how hard it can be to take the first step on the road to recovery. But believe us when we say this is the first step. You've taken it. You've found us. You're starting to navigate through the maze. We'll be here every step of the way. Take it at your own pace and browse through the pages. So they just sort of give you a little bit of a intro there. And then there's a section on safety and a word of caution. They said the Internet's a great source of information. However, they said here, whoever wrote this, I suggest that you treat all of this information, and especially information that you seek regarding your own health and well-being, with caution. This is not to say that information that you discover on the Internet is accurate or is inaccurate or misleading. While some of it can be pretty suspect, much of it's valuable. And then they go on to talk about well-intentioned rather than well-informed. You must be the judge and whatnot. So we'll pick that up Monday. You can go there if you've never seen this, havoka.org, and look under their safety tab. It might be under the survivors tab, I think, or just could be just safety section, right? So be sure and check that out. That's really interesting. I like what they have written here, and we'll take a look at some more of it on Monday. And also, coping mechanisms. What can we use really to help us cope daily, or just to cope on a regular basis? I found some great stuff on irvingstudios.com. That is Michael C. Irving. He's a PhD sculptor, coach, counselor. He's a survivor of abuse. He knows he's been there, and he's a counselor as well. And he's got a great website, irvingstudios.com. And or you can just type in your browser Child Abuse Survivor Monument, and that should take you there, Irving Studios. He's got like boundary stuff here. He's got stuff on coping mechanisms. We left off quite a few shows ago looking at creating cognitive boundaries, and some of them are remember the best time to gain control of panic, anger, or fear is early, before it gets really going. Consciously think about how you feel and what you need to say. Visualize a barrier around negative emotions, and see a barrier or wall between you and what you want to keep out. Visualize a protective bubble around you. So this is what I can do when I'm having these flashbacks. See, when I'm having these flashbacks of the beatings that I took as a child, mainly from my mother, some from my dad, but these horrific, vicious beatings, that still haunt me today, I can visualize a barrier between me and that flashback. And on that other side of that barrier, I don't care what's going on, but on the inside of the barrier that's facing me is peace and tranquility, and the knowledge that my abuser cannot hurt me anymore. My abusers are all dead, right? They really are. Actually, they all passed away. And so there's things that we can do. We can tell people what our limits are, right? Tell people what your limits are. I can be honest and open with people about my limitations and my limits. And visualize that you are surrounded in healing white light. Things like I've actually done all of this stuff here. Very, very good, helpful stuff. Go to irvingstudios.com if you want more information there. And we won't have time for a meditation this morning. We'll have to maybe pick that up on Monday. So I wish you all a wonderful weekend. What I really want to do is just encourage you to hang in there. Do not give up. If you're struggling over the weekend and you can't cope and you don't know how you're going to cope, if you're listening to this and you're sitting there thinking, I don't know how I can cope, you call a crisis line. Call somebody, because that's what I'm going to do, And I want to be one of the people sitting on the crisis lines, right? But I can't do it right now, and it wouldn't be a good idea. My husband's terminally ill, and they actually won't. They suggest that I not do it. But I want to be one of those people sitting on the crisis lines, because I know how hard it is. And you call somebody, you get help. You remember my voice if you're listening to this, and you deserve so much better. We all do. We all did. You deserve to have a good life, free from pain and sorrow and misery. So reach out, get some help. Do not give up. Call a crisis line. Call somebody. Don't suffer on your own. And take care of yourself. And I wish that you a happy weekend and a healthy weekend. And a weekend of fun times, as well as some quiet time for yourself if you have time. And we just got a couple minutes left here, but we'll be back on Monday, same time, same place, and 7 o'clock in the morning. And be sure and go to havoca.org, www.havoca.org, and irvingstudios.org. That's a Child Abuse Survivor Monument. And check out their coping lists and get that information on how to keep yourself safe. And I wish you a wonderful day. Take good care till next time. Bye-bye.
Insurance is not knowing if you have coverage when your car bumps a hot dog cart that hits a fire hydrant that floods your car. TD Insurance is confidence your coverage fits your needs. Graduates and professionals could save $680 by bundling home and car insurance. Avoid insurance and get a quote at tdinsurance.com.